Well, thanks very much, and thanks for the trailer that he showed of our presentation. The only correction that I will make is no, Rapid SOS is not the slowest, longest existing startup in the history of tech. We've been at it 8 years now. Still zero revenue, which is really a testament to the investors in the thing. But I think you'll find it because a lot of these technologies you'll see work together. What you just saw from Rapid SOS, I mean, he said very clearly, hey, we take whatever location is out there, we bundle it up, we send this in so that you can see it and understand it and use it. But the starting point is you really got to get the very, very best location for that to be sent along right now. And so the key thing that I will say here that we've been trying to do is it's complicated technology, but it's really a very simple, if we can now push one forward. There we go. It's a very simple concept. Everybody agrees that the U.S. government spent billions of dollars to make GPS a fabulous system. And if GPS satellite signals were strong enough to get inside buildings, none of us would be here today. It would all be great. All of the location would be known. All of these dense urban locations would be fixed, and there would be no problem. So what we are simply endeavoring to do is to create a terrestrial network for the urban markets where the satellite signals cannot get in, make those terrestrial signals look just like a GPS satellite signal, so that the GPS chip in your phone, when it can't see those satellite signals, it picks up the other signals. And presto, it's solved. That's the essence of what we're trying to accomplish. We are essentially a network services provider. We own spectrum assets. We own towers in all of these big urban markets to put up these little miniature GPS satellites, which, by the way, internationally are now called Metropolitan Beacon Systems. So it's MBS. They consider it just like another satellite constellation, just like GLONASS or Galileo or some of the other satellite systems. It's a terrestrial constellation. And so it flows in through the standards process exactly like that. So that's what we're attempting to do. The testing that we have done, and this is not our internal testing, this is the industry-sponsored testing back 5 years ago with the original CISRIC industry group test, and in the more recent FCC-mandated CTIA testbed, we've actually had third-party testing groups come in and say, both horizontally and vertically, what is the accuracy of this technology among all the technologies that have been tested? And at this point, they have validated that, in fact, our technology meets or exceeds all of the FCC requirements, not for now, but for 2021 and 2023, if it were, in fact, deployed. So that's the essence of it. The final essence that we'll note is the other thing that really is great about GPS is when a storm comes through, or when there's a hurricane or there's a snowstorm and the power is out and the towers are down, it still works. So we've built our network to be a similar mission-critical, fault-tolerant, high-reliability, battery-backed-up solution. So when the Wi-Fi is out, a lot of these other technologies simply disappear. They're not there right when you need them the worst. They're not available. In low-income and elderly sections of town, well, they've already cut the cord. They don't have Fios and Uverse and Xfinity. So they don't have a Wi-Fi access point. So they've got no number that they can associate with their address. So the very people who need it the worst, the people who make more 911 calls than anyone else, will be served the least. So that's the essence of what we're trying to do, is essentially create a governmentally, like they did with GPS, but privately funded technology that would then work with the existing GPS chips in cell phones. Simple graphic here, simply saying GPS works great out here. GPS does not work great in there. We don't want to build our network all around the rural areas of the country. GPS works fine. We only want to build it in whatever built-up areas. It's hard to find people inside buildings because the GPS doesn't work. And we wanted to also add the vertical because we understood that if you're on the 89th floor of the Chrysler building, even if you know you're in the Chrysler building and you had a heart attack, you're not likely to get found unless they know what floor. So the FCC rules, most of you have already heard, essentially making it very, very simple. It used to be outdoor only because GPS was only outdoor. 2 years ago, the rules said, nope, it's got to be indoors as well too, but we'll give you 6 years to get it tighter and tighter and tighter and better. So that by 2021, you really need to be able to find people within 50 meters 80% of the time. And oh, by the way, it really would be nice if you could find them within a single floor vertically. Now, that 3-meter metric for vertical that was originally proposed and still desired by the public safety entities, that's not in the current rules. It has simply turned it back over to industry and said, tell us how tight you can get it. And that was a reasonable request. But everybody knows you want to put them on the exact floor. That's what public safety wants, and that's what's really meaningful. So the testing that we just completed showed 80th percentile was 1.7 meters vertically, which is, I guess I am about 1.7. So it's really within a floor level's capability vertically. I see both Verizon and AT&T here, so thank you. You were our partners in the tests that were just completed with the FCC trials and the CTIA. They were our partners. AT&T was actually our partner as far back as the CISRIC trials 5 years ago. So there's been a lot of support behind this. It is internationally standardized now, 3GPP. It's an international standard, so it's flowing into the GPS chips as we speak. The only thing you still have to do is build the rest of the networks out. So vertical is really one of the keys in urban markets. The ability to identify the subject and where they're located can be the difference between life and death. The thing that we found out very quickly, though, was the fact that our technology can put you at a three-dimensional point in space very accurately is really cool, but kind of hard to visualize. So where is that X, Y, and Z? So then we spent an awful lot of time over the last 2 years saying, how could we allow people to visualize this in a way where that spot point in space is surrounded by the building that they're in, so you can see what floor they're on and how they're moving around within the building. Think Born Adventure or Born Up, and he's running through and they're tracking it. My wife said, wow, they can do that? They can see you move it? Well, no, they really can't. But it looks great. So our objective was really kind of to do that. Can you create three-dimensional images of buildings in a seamless way and then put the subject, or more importantly, as the first responders told us, tell us where our people are. I've got an active shooter situation. I want to see inside that building. I want to see where my people are going and be able to have command and control over that so that I can instruct them where to go. And it's great, yeah, I see where the person I'm going to is, but I want to control my people as well. So one of the elements, by the way, of the FirstNet bid, it's mostly associated with a big high bandwidth LTE network. But in year 4, IOC 4 time, they said, but we also want to have enhanced 3D location for the first responder network so we can have command and control over our own people. And I'll show you a video in just a second. But what this essentially shows is a building. This happens to be a Embassy Suites in Santa Clara. So this isn't just a mock-up. This is an actual building. We've demonstrated it for DHS and the FBI and the whole first responders and others to send people into the building, wander them around, and then watch them, which is really kind of cool. And just to prove we can do it more fulsomely, we did downtown San Francisco. This is 2,000 buildings in downtown San Francisco. And what we actually do is we take flyover 3D high-res photography, and then we look at where the windows are in buildings and interpolate floors because from where the window locations are. And then we create these stick figure, three-dimensional transparent buildings around them. It takes about 3 weeks to do a city. And you might not, it might be like they skipped the 13th floor and went right to the 14th or something like that. So it may not be absolutely pristine like you would get from a true blueprint. But boom, you can do an entire city. And you can lay it out. And you have the command and control to be able to go in and do this. It takes roughly 100 beacons for a major metropolitan area. So you're not talking about, you know, a full-scale like cellular build-out. It's like you put 100 GPS satellites around. But that's sufficient to cover every single location. The other problem with many of the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or venue-specific things, it's there in one place, but it's not there in another. Somebody plugged in a Bluetooth thing in their apartment, but every apartment around them didn't have it. So the nice thing about like a GPS system is, in this system, once it's turned up, every single location in the city's covered. I mean, people get shot at warehouses in the middle of the night, and no, there wasn't a big commercial system there. So you have to be able to do that, and it has to work in power outage conditions as well. So I will show the video, the trailer that you saw earlier. This is something we submitted to FirstNet as part of our capability statement, and with some of the partners that are subcontracting for the FirstNet bids. And it shows what this is capable of from a command and control basis, not just from the 911 standpoint of finding the individual, but also seeing your own personnel going in. So punch it.
The following is from a live demonstration of Metropolitan Beacon System indoor location technology in the San Francisco Bay Area. Finding callers in an emergency, particularly indoors and in high-rise urban environments, can be difficult, especially if they hang up quickly or are unable to communicate their location.
911 Emergency Services, what is the location of your emergency?
There's an emergency at the hotel I'm in. Please send help right away.
Technology now exists to speed up first response by quickly determining the location of a 911 caller, even indoors and in large buildings. The same technology enables first responders to be tracked, located, and rescued whenever they may be in harm's way. Dispatch and command centers can see where all of their first responder resources are at any given moment, as well as the location of the caller and what floor they're on in high-rise buildings. Not only does this enable responders to locate emergency callers more quickly, it also permits accurate tracking of first responders in difficult environments and enables better resource coordination.
I can see you've arrived at the scene. The caller is located on the 8th floor.
This level of command and control has historically not been available in dense urban environments where it is needed most. Designed for precise three-dimensional locating, Metropolitan Beacon Systems provide service to an entire urban area, not just specific buildings or venues. The beacon signals penetrate deep into buildings where GPS signals are blocked and pinpoint precise 3D locations for consumer smartphones and first responder equipment. Knowing exactly where the caller is and where the first responders are will save lives. Visually seeing the location of first responders inside a building improves both their effectiveness as well as their personal safety. Emergencies can happen anywhere and everywhere, so public safety response systems must operate seamlessly across entire metropolitan areas, reaching each and every building and continuing to operate in hostile environments, storms, and power outages. Enhanced location technologies, such as the MBS system demonstrated here, along with 3D context and visualization capabilities, can leapfrog public safety into the 21st century, greatly improving time to first response, empowering dispatching command posts, and increasing the personal safety of our first responders.
So anyway, that gives you a view of it, and you know, as you saw, you can access a web browser, so you can just kind of take the building and go above it or go beside it, or have one group looking at it from one side and somebody looking at it from the top, and you can make all the other buildings around it go back into 2D, so they disappear. So you only have the target building that you're going towards, and so that type of a capability, I'd say the capital expense, maybe for, I think in San Francisco it cost us about $5 million to build all of San Francisco, and at that point in time, basically every single building is covered. So it has those sort of capabilities. Obviously, the sort of active shooter, terrorist control type situations are pretty clear in that sort of situation. But want to let you know where it stands. As I say, we've been at it for many years now, but it is getting finally to the rolling into regular GPS chipsets. So this is not a separate chip in your phone. It's just it sees your signal as well as the other constellations. With that, thank you very much for inviting us back again this year. Any questions on it? One over here. Okay. The question, if you didn't hear it, was like the little green or the red or blue figures that we how did we decide who those were? When a 911 call is placed, you are giving permission to be tracked as long as that call is up. So in this particular case, the green individual was the caller. As soon as that pops on the screen, we then isolated that. All of the red, which was the fire, and the blue, which was the police, obviously they just have that either built into their mic buttons or part of their, handsets that they have for their equipment, and they have full-time permission to be tracked for their purposes. So from a privacy standpoint, it is like GPS. The user selects whether it's on or off, but when you make a 911 call, you are selecting that it's turned on. The second question was? The question is, how do you keep that cityscape up to date as new construction and things like this? They're actually the companies that do the little high-res flyovers. That's what feeds the Google Maps 3D type stuff. They buy the same raw data that we buy for that. So you would have to refresh that periodically. Most of the city doesn't change that much, and so it's a pretty minimal thing to just add 5 or 6 or 10 buildings. In other places, like in college campuses, where you definitely would like to see inside every building, every student would then potentially say, yes, I'm allowed to be tracked. So again, like some of the college issues that have come up at various times, yes, there's an incident. I want to see where all of the students are. I want to watch them. I want to be able to send out instructions to them and be able to see where they are within the buildings. You could do a whole college campus in a couple of days of just doing this technique. You can get better accuracy, obviously, by getting the blueprints that the fire chiefs and things like this have from their normal thing and ingesting that. The nice part about this is it just gives a very quick hit that allows you to cover an entire city at once. Other questions? Great, thank you very much.